Hello, right, today I want to talk about the big political sensation of the moment, Jeremy Corbyn. Now, I never thought I'd end up saying those words because I've known Jeremy for quite a few years, about 10 years actually. I spent today hanging out with him in Finsbury Park. I interviewed him, caught him after his morning jog, but that's what I want to talk about today because there is, at the moment, in full swing, uniting both the kind of liberal left and the conservative right, a Get Corbyn campaign. And that is to attack him and undermine him and ridicule him, not just him, but the people who support him. So if you support Jeremy Corbyn, you need to be prepared because it is going to be pretty intense if he wins. And he will have very few friends in either Westminster or in the media elite. So first off, his right-wing critics. Now at first, some of them are, I'll be honest with you, personally unpleasant right-wing commentators. They were all like, ooh, yeah, Jeremy Corbyn, vote for him, he'll destroy the Labour Party. And even though the Conservatives won on the smallest share of the vote that any majority Conservative government in this country has ever won on, they're acting at the moment like they've got a majority of 200. So they're pretty triumphalist. But also they want to turn the left into a bit of a laughing stock, humiliate it and turn it into a total embarrassment. So that's what they're after. Margaret Thatcher once warned, she said, no one should underestimate Labour's potential appeal. Her former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Geoffrey Howe, celebrated it on her 80th birthday by saying the real triumph was to have transformed not just one party, but two. And a close personal friend of Thatcher, a Tory MP called Conall Burns, he told me how once Thatcher declared to this cheering crowd of her supporters, our greatest achievement was Tony Blair, we forced our opponents to change. Well, that is now under threat. And that is why a lot of right-wing commentators are now getting very, very nervous. Alistair Heath, in The Telegraph, the deputy editor, he said a Corbyn victory in the Labour leadership battle would be a disaster. And the reason for that, he thinks, is it would make ideas like public ownership of rail, for example, or higher taxes on the rich, that would finally become, again, mainstream, acceptable policies in the political mainstream. And it would be on TV, on radio, in prime slots, people making the case. So his fear is that actually, if Jeremy Corbyn becomes Labour leader, then all of these ideas will become mainstream and the political debate will be dragged to the left. And lots of other people are saying the same thing. Another Oliver Cooper, a Tory activist in The Telegraph, saying it would shift the entire political debate to the left and give credibility to what he calls the far left's rejection of reality. So if Jeremy Corbyn becomes leader, he will have a big section of the Parliamentary Labour Party after him because they absolutely, I'm afraid, are not supportive of anything he believes whatsoever. They dread him becoming leader. Many of them will refuse to serve in his shadow cabinet.
Would you serve in a Jeremy Corbyn shadow cabinet, Liz Kendall? No,
I wouldn't.
So you could give us a clear answer on that one. Good.
Yeah.
They will plot against him, undermine him. You'll have the media going, in the words of the former Labour Minister Chris Mullins, bananas. They will dig through Jeremy Corbyn's history, the history of anybody close to him. They will twist policies out of all recognition and quotes out of context. It is going to be very difficult because virtually the entire media and political establishment opposes what Jeremy Corbyn stands for. How is someone like Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party and the movement that is underpinning him supposed to survive all that? Well, we've seen now what's been fascinating over the last few weeks is this immense grassroots movement supporting him all over the country. Huge political meetings of a size you very rarely see in this country, and certainly not with politicians. And it's similar to what we've seen in Scotland, a huge grassroots movement that's emerged that politicised Scotland. Well, if you support Jeremy Corbyn and you're inspired by that grassroots movement, the point I'd make is this: it has to be just the beginning. If he wins, what it would have to do is go into every single community in this country. And the possibility, if he wins, I think there'll be this massive influx of activists, hundreds of thousands of people, and they need to go into communities across the country and start the biggest mass registration drive in British history, particularly targeting working class voters who in many cases have stopped voting altogether. Then there's young people. Now, Labour actually got its best ever result amongst young people since 1997 and the second highest since 1974. The problem is, of course, is young people often tend not to vote. Less than half of 18 to 24-year-olds went out and vote. Those people, again, need to be organised, given a voice, and registered, and infused and inspired. That has to be a big aim. UKIP, they have to be won over. It's the same with Green voters, with SNP voters who often now regard Labour as the so-called red Tories. In terms of Jeremy himself, he's going to have to be very conciliatory towards the Parliamentary Labour Party. As well as all that, in his first big defining speech as Labour leader, I think he needs to give a kind of progressive, patriotic speech about the great history of this country, ordinary people fighting against injustice. That big defining speech has to be the speech of his life, an inspiring, inclusive message that shows that his politics aren't just about people at the very bottom of society, but about improving the standards of people's lives for the majority of society. There's this political ferment that's taking place across Europe, and Jeremy Corbyn's campaign's part of that. If it's to succeed, got to build that big grassroots movement. All of us have to be part of it. So I want to hear your thoughts. If you do believe in this new alternative, this politics of hope that Jeremy Corbyn is pledging, what are you going to do to support it? Or maybe you just think it's a load of nonsense, it's absurd, Jeremy Corbyn's not going to become Labour leader, and if he is, it's going to be a disaster. Let's have the debate, let's have the discussion. A two-way debate as ever. So leave your comments, subscribe, and let's keep the discussion going as ever.